It's time for Twig This Week in Google. We've got some special guests. Andy Carvin from NPR, the amazing Twitter journalist, and Chris Messina. He's in charge of Open at Google. Coming up next, This Week in Google.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for This Week in Google is provided by Cachefly. Cachefly.com. This is Twig, This Week in Google, episode 87, recorded March 23rd, 2011. Google Gaga. This Week in Google is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Visiting important contacts from New York and LA to Bangalore and London is time-consuming and expensive. Have meetings online instead with GoToMeeting. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomeeting.com/twig. And by FreshBooks, the easy online invoicing service that gets you paid quickly and makes you look more professional. Get started with a free package at freshbooks.com. It's time for Twig This Week in Google, the show that covers Google and the cloud. And joining us right now, starting in my upper left-hand corner, we've got Gina Trapani. Hey, Gina.
Hello.
From smarterware.org.
Great to be here. Great guests. Excited for a good show.
I got an
Lots of
email
words.
from Steve Martin, who said he hates Backupify, but he's really happy with ThinkUp.
Awesome.
Guess he's
Love to hear that.
So you have a fan.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah, he's probably going to send you a plastic bunny ears or something as a thank you.
I would love that. It's kind of surreal getting emails from Steve Martin, I have to say. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah, more than awesome.
Yes.
Yes. Also with us, actually, another great guest in studio. Jeff Jarvis is here, as usual. But look at that guy to his right, Andy Carvin.
Hey, everyone.
Is also here. Andy's the guy we keep promoting on the Twitter. What's your title at NPR?
Senior strategist.
Oh, wow.
That's how I react.
Are you a
Something
journalist?
to do with Middle East coverage. So.
Are you a journalist by training?
I'm a writer and documentary maker by background, but have worked in online community organizing going back to the mid-'90s, and have also doing a lot of online disaster response. So this is just second nature for me. It's just focusing on news and reporting instead.
We've mentioned many times that if you follow A. Carvin on Twitter, you will get an amazing curated list of links and tweets and a very interesting material on, well, did it start with Tunisia? You've been doing it for a while, I guess.
Yeah, I started in Tunisia just before Christmas, and since then it's expanded to, let's see, Egypt? Iran, Yemen, Bahrain, Libya, Morocco, and a few others.
And Japan.
And Japan.
Yeah. You're Mr. Democracy plus Tsunami.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It's really, I mean, I couldn't be more sincere when I say that this is something everybody who is interested in these breaking stories should follow. But I think we talk about it a lot. I know Jeff does, because it's a totally new way to get information. It's a new form of journalism.
Well, I think the thing that's new about it is, on the one hand, it's like I'm using Twitter for doing live anchor coverage like a broadcaster would. But rather than relying on producers and editors and researchers to hand me information, I just ask my Twitter crowd, because I'm essentially a one-man band. I don't know everything. I don't even speak Arabic. And so if I start hearing things from a particular place in Libya or Bahrain, I start asking for assistance, and people come out of the woodwork to help me figure out what's true and what's not.
And, of course, the crime of it is while Charlie Sheen has well over 2 million followers, you've only got 37,000 followers, and yet it is arguably one of the richest Twitter streams out there for real content. So thank you, Andy.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
And every time I've plugged Andy on the show, I talk so fast that I get tweets the next day saying, who was that guy again? Who was it? Listen to that guy.
Right.
Acarvin. It's easy to remember. Just think of a car driving into a French winery.
Exactly.
No, that's not good. A Carvin. And there,
the humanity.
And the groan comes from Factory Joe, Chris Messina himself. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining us. So great to have you.
Yeah, welcome. Glad to be back, actually.
Chris is open web advocate at Google, but he for years has been taking the lead on open standards across the web. Joined Google. It's been now a couple of years at Google, right?
No, actually, it's been just over a year.
It feels like longer.
I know, right? It's the epic struggles that we've faced together.
But I commend Google for bringing in somebody like you, and commend you for, going into the lion's den. But where better to go to promote open standards on the web?
Yeah, thanks. It took a long, hard thought to sort of figure out what I wanted to do next about a year ago, and part of it was just having a number of conversations with different folks, thinking about where I could make the most impact and who was sort of actually most seemingly aligned with where I thought the web needed to go, especially the social web. And so after having those conversations, Google seemed like a natural fit. I mean, they're obviously a big tech company, but they've also been really adamant about ruining open standards and open technologies for quite a while. So hoping to do more of that here. Did you have to talk them into letting you on the show? No, actually, so far they've been pretty good about that. And, PR has been very supportive of what I've done. And in fact, the interesting thing for me that I've learned is that in the last year, I've kind of gone underground in a lot of ways. And that's because I've been doing a lot more evangelism inside of Google, helping Google to sort of understand what's going on outside of, the Mountain View campus in terms of the social web and in terms of the different technologies that are out there. And, they've also been supportive of actually getting more folks in developer relations and throughout the company blogging and using social media. So I think that's actually been very positive. In fact, it was about a week and a half ago, I was on an internal blogger panel, sort of talking about the ways and hows and how to do it and how to make it work. And I think stuff like that is very promising.
That's great. Chris is
what's the biggest kind of message that you've wanted to get across at Google, or the Google most needed? What's the cultural bridge you built?
I think it's ongoing. I think part of it for me is, it's not just about technologies all the time. Like, of course, out in Silicon Valley in the open sort of standards world, we talk a lot about tech and about formats and protocols. But at the end of the day, it's really about creating great products and great product experiences. So a lot of the conversation that I've been having is like the struggle between, we want to do the open thing, we want to do the right thing, but we also want to create a great product and a great user experience. So how can we achieve both? And I think part of that is understanding what Google wants to do for the web, and then how can we work with others to build a better, more interesting ecosystem that enables apps that currently aren't possible because we lack interoperability in those basic underlying technologies.
Well, as long as we've got Andy here, and I know Andy's not here forever, so why don't we little logistics here. We've got, of course, a lot of news to cover, but I think it's an opportunity to get Andy on briefly. I take it that you've got to go back to tweeting or something.
Yeah, well, I've been tweeting this whole time thanks to my phone, but I probably do have to get running in about 15 minutes.
I've been tweeting the whole time. So has it become? It must have become. No, but it must have become kind of a full. Well, I'm looking at it right now, and a lot of what you're doing is retweeting, which makes it very easy because you don't have to type anything.
Yeah, most of what I've sent out in the last 5-10 minutes have been retweets from sources that I've found to be reliable in the last couple of months. There have been a couple tweets that I chimed in on that I was either skeptical of or wanted more information, and so it's the kind of thing you can type one-handed and get out pretty quickly. But what I've really tried to do is identify who in each country has the right information, who's more reliable, and for those that are somewhat questionable, how I can involve my Twitter community to vet them. Right. So it's a combination of several things going on at once.
That's what I was wondering, Andy. What tool do you use? Any tools to sort of take notes and kind of in establishing reputation on some of these sources? What are you using to besides just sort of asking your Twitter followers about determining reputation? What are you using to kind of keep track of who are the people you feel like you can retweet safely or are like good sources and who you want to stay away from?
It's really just virtual shoe leather at this point. I typically use TweetDeck, but there's nothing inherently about TweetDeck that makes it better than other Twitter clients. Essentially what I do is I always start and try to figure out who I know in any given country. Fortunately for both Tunisia and Egypt, I had at least a half a dozen trusted sources already due to previous travels there. And while watching them on Twitter, I could after a while, figure out who they trusted, who they retweeted or replied to the longest, how long that they had been following each other on Twitter. You can tell from the intimacy of some of these conversations how connected they are. In some cases, I discovered these folks were brothers and sisters or husband and wives. After a while, you just start noticing these patterns in the way people talk to each other. It's been a lot harder in places like Libya, of course, because very few people are online and everyone's using aliases. And frankly, most of my contacts in Libya have either gone missing, and one of them, unfortunately, was killed this weekend. So it's a lot tougher to vet things there. But having said that, the vast majority of the user-generated content you see coming out of Libya is real and comes from Libya. It's just a matter of figuring out the appropriate context, the whens and wheres and whys.
Right. Right. I mean, I think that's a big question for me. Something I struggle with in building ThinkUp is like figuring out, determining authority and expertise, and like figuring out those relationships and how people talk to one another and how they're related and what makes them what makes them authorities and what makes them good sources. So I was interested to know. So it sounds like this is happening. You're working your contacts like any journalist would, but also sort of using information that you've gleaned just from watching people interact to figure out who's a good source.
I mean, that's an interesting question. Can you automate this, or does it have to be done by a human,
We've been talking about various ways of automating some of it, but I think for it to really work, you need to at least know one or two people that you can trust and rely on. Once you know a couple of people, you can probably run some scripts to get a sense of who they're closest to. That's certainly conceivable. But like in the case of Libya, the reason why I was able to find context there was because I first tried identifying context in the Libyan expat community here in the U.S. and getting on Skype with them and saying, who do you know that's actually there? Which of these Twitter users are real? Which ones are fake? And they just talked me through as many of them as they could and helped connect me to a number of people that have been tremendous sources. So there's always actual journalism taking place in the background, even though what you see on Twitter is a culmination of open news gathering and reporting and Studs Terkel like oral history all happening at the same time. It's kind of a bit of a jumbled mess.
One reason I'm here is to try to work on this out of CUNY and figure out new ways to develop tools that will help this. It's a new form of journalism, you're absolutely right. And it breaks out of the idea that we're always just storytellers. It instead says that the witnesses are telling us, and Andy is adding journalistic value throughout. One thing, since I have this audience here, one thing we're going to try to bring at CUNY is some analysis of Andy's experience on this, and I want to look at the data and analyze and visualize the relationships that have occurred here and see who follows whom and who retweets whom and so on and so forth. So if there's anybody out there who's a real whiz of this kind of visualization and analysis.
Gee, I wonder if there's Gina Trapani is listening.
I was just thinking that.
Because I'm pretty sure that's exactly what ThinkUp does.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, this is what we're working towards, right? Is visualizing these relationships and seeing who's who, and establishing authority. I think is a really big issue, and I totally agree. Someone's just got to get on the phone and you can't do this with a script. I think there's got to be some human intervention involved. But I think that software like ThinkUp, or I hope that software like ThinkUp can help with that sort of thing.
I mean,
anyway, I didn't mean to turn this into a commercial. I was genuinely interested, just from a developer's point of view, of how we could help someone like you, Andy, do what you do. Because it's so important. It makes me feel less bad about following Lady Gaga on Twitter.
It makes it okay.
And Lady Gaga, it makes it okay. It does.
Charlie Sheen, though, just don't go there.
Well, but it can make in all seriousness, it can be a little disorienting when Lady Gaga's talking to her little monsters, and all of a sudden you hear about a big monster in Libya. It's a little, but that's what Twitter, kind of unique to Twitter, where it is all jumbled together in interesting ways. I don't mind that.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I hear the most from people, is that they find it really disconcerting that they're following their favorite fashionistas or whatever, and at the same time seeing me tweet photos of the latest batch of corpses coming out of a city in Libya. The other thing I get the most are people praying for my safety, because every single day people think that I'm somewhere. Just earlier today, someone was tweeting me asking me when the hell I'm going to get out of Benghazi, like so many other reporters have. I said, well, I wish I could do that, but I was sitting on my couch with my cats and my kids at that particular moment, and I was in Palm Springs last week, so the only thing I had to worry about then was like a sunburn. So it can be really strange, but I guess it's also a sign of people thinking what I'm doing is effective if it seems like I'm actually there.
Yeah.
And Gina, seriously, you were my next call.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's do that.
Oh, I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, we'll definitely be in touch.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I also enjoy it because it shows that while there's a lot of amusement factor in all of this stuff, and there's nothing wrong with amusement, there's also a lot of value. It's all mixed together, and I guess that was true of television. The problem is television was linear. This is aggressively non-linear.
Well, I think we talked that you have a couple of Indiana scientists who found that by tracking the words behind 6 moods and their opposite, they could track the up and down in the Dow to like 90% accuracy.
Right.
And there's now a new hedge fund that started out of that. And they should learn a different way to do things here.
Right.
Money.
Yeah.
But I think that this idea that you're capturing the knowledge and psyche and news of the people now, that's new. And that's what excites me so much. Again, what Andy's doing is that he's adding the journalistic value to that, because it's too confusing. It's too much. But you've got to be open to seeing the value that's there, which is what Andy's done.
Yeah, it's definitely what I'm trying to do, because I've heard people say, well, it definitely feels like you've got the pulse on your finger on the pulse on what's going on in Libya. And I think there's some truth to that, except in this particular case, the pulse talks back to me. The pulse translates for me.
Wow.
Pulse volunteers to do all sorts of things that there's no way I could do on my own. And so, honestly, I don't care if I have 100 followers or 100,000 followers on Twitter, as long as a critical mass of them are subject matter experts and people with experience on the ground and people who give a damn about these places, because they're the ones that let me do my job well.
But what's
the tricks to learn? If Leo keeps kids safe, but tell me how the first search is when a big news story happens.
Oh, yes. So, for example, when the U.S. Airways plane went down on the Hudson River, the very first thing I did was try to do a proximity search on Manhattan, searching from a time frame beginning before any of the wire stories went out, and searching for phrases like plane, river, holy shit. And the reason why it's really important that you do stuff like that. For earthquakes, I search for what the hell was that? What the fuck was that?
The search is on Twitter, not on Google. You're searching on Twitter.
On Twitter, because people use fleeting expletives on Twitter in the same way they do in real life. And so if you can guess how a person's responding to a situation,
that's interesting.
You can often find the eyewitnesses that way.
Yeah, because if you're an eyewitness, you say, holy
crap, what was that?
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Wow.
Yeah.
You're giving away your secrets.
Yep. So now I don't have to do this job anymore, because you can all do it.
Well, I wonder how viable this job is. The New York Times is putting up a paywall. When do we get an Andy Carvin paywall? How do you make a living doing this?
It wouldn't work. Even if I could find enough people who wanted to pay for my Twitter feed, the reality is my Twitter work is successful because I've got so many people who know what I'm talking about following me.
Yeah.
And so, like I said before, I'd rather have almost no one following me, as long as the people who have experiences in the places I'm trying to cover. And to me, that's much more valuable, because I don't see this as trying to monetize my Twitter account. I see this as trying to improve the quality and diversity of NPR's journalism. That's my primary goal here.
Oh, here.
Money's not bad, but but I think we can make journalism a lot better and make it viable.
But kudos to NPR for paying you. So part of what they pay you to do is this.
Yeah, part of my day job has always been to experiment with new tools. This case has been somewhat strange, because as things escalated in Tunisia and then in Egypt, I started to ignore meeting requests and canceling meetings and just delegating work to people that I had no responsibility or right to give it to them. And as the weeks went by, people started to notice, but they were very positive about it. In some ways, I'd equate it with the guy in the movie Office Space who starts spacing out and goes to work and knocks down his cubicle wall and starts basically doing nothing and gets a promotion for it. So I'm kind of like not doing my job in an official capacity, but yet all the higher ups here seem very pleased so far on how it's going.
But watch out, copy machine, because there's
absolutely.
Andrew Carvin might lose it.
Reports are piling up left and right.
Everybody should follow Andy. Do you know of other people like this, Jeff or Andy? Are there other people doing this kind of work? I think this is unique.
Well, there are certainly some people that are doing a very good job live tweeting the revolutions. For example, there's a guy, I believe in the UAE, named Sultan Al-Qasemi, who's been tremendous, because not only does he keep in touch with everything going on, he's a fluent native Arabic speaker. So he's got one leg up above me in terms of being able to keep up on tweets that are in Arabic. I'm somewhat different in the sense that I have NPR as a bully pulpit, whereas he's doing this because he just loves doing this. And also the fact that I'm able to, I really focus on trying to get my followers on Twitter to help me. And he does that to a certain extent, but it's in some ways the primary way that I'm doing business on Twitter, because I would never call myself a Mideast expert expert by any means, but I feel like that I've got enough followers who are invested both in me and invested in the situation in the Middle East that they're willing to volunteer the time to make my reporting better.
Thank you for what you do, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And you've got 100 new followers right now.
I hope you all speak Arabic.
A-C,
to work.
just remember, a car going into a vineyard. ACARVIN on Twitter. Follow him. And thanks to your bosses at NPR for letting you do this. And I hope others, I mean, it really is a template for others to do this. Of course, if you are in the middle of it, if this is your personal story, you're going to do this kind of thing. But I think what we need is more meta curators at a high level like you are, Andy, covering more stories. And I think it's a really interesting form of journalism.
If you wouldn't mind,
sure.
I think it's interesting to see what Andy's doing. I had the pleasure to meet Andy at South by, a rare snippet that I do recall, and
he remembers your hat too. So there you go.
So there was something going on there.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because a friend of mine, Nate Ritter, sort of did something very similar, though perhaps on a smaller scale, in 2007 with the San Diego fires.
Right.
And,
I remember that was the first time that really broke out on Twitter. I do remember that. Yep.
Yeah.
And folks at KPBS were very involved in doing that too.
Right.
That's the local NPR PBS station in San Diego. They basically said, we don't know what the hell is going on across the counties. We need you on Twitter to help us figure it out. And they did an amazing job. So, I would never pretend that what I'm doing is new. I remember folks doing this when Benazir Bhutto was assassinated several years ago. Lots of people did similar things during the 2008 election. I think what's different in my case is I've dropped all of my other job responsibilities and I've made this more than a full-time job.
Way more.
Yeah, because I'm doing this 16, 17 hours a day. Yeah, 7 days a week. And I haven't done it in the last 5 minutes, so hopefully they don't think I'm dead or stranded somewhere in Libya.
Does that happen sometimes if you don't tweet in 10 minutes? People go, Andy, are you there?
Yeah, I do. I get it all the time. And half of the people say, Andy, stop apologizing for going offline. And others say, thank you. You weren't run over by a bus. That's good.
There was one night when Andy, there was a huge night, I don't know which one it was a huge news night in Egypt or something. And Andy said, I'm going to go to sleep for 6 hours. And I was in Europe. So I saw the moment 6 hours came later. And I just tweeted, I'm your alarm clock, Andy.
Wake up.
And I got up a little bit after that. And next thing you know, Mubarak resigned 3 hours later.
Wow. Wow.
So thank you for the alarm. Actually, we need to write a script so you can DM me and have my phone freak out. That would actually be really good.
All right, Andy, we'll let you go back to work, but thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, Leo. Good seeing all of you. Take care.
Interesting. Take care.
Thanks, Andy.
Andy Carvin, NPR, and prolific Twitterer. You know what, Chris, it strikes me that this is a really good example of how, and of course you were on Twitter very early, how you can design something like Twitter and have no idea how it will be used or what it will be. And I think this happens all the time in the net these days, doesn't it?
It seems to be the case of good emergent systems. I mean, I think this is the whole premise of working on open, formats, essentially technologies that allow. Well, and I'm diving too deeply into the tech stuff already, but
no, go. We want you to do that.
I'm sort of making this point because I think Twitter did this in an amazing way very early on. And in fact, I think Ev and Biz have had a knack for doing this. If you think about Blogger early on, when Ev and Biz were working on that, really that was taking sort of a known medium, like newspaper articles, and moving into a digital domain. So you had the titles and you had like this sort of long text body content that you would read. And of course, there weren't a lot of people blogging at that time in the mid 2000s. And so you could subscribe to people and you could read their entire blog posts. As more and more people learned how to use computers and how to type and how to be proficient at it in the subsequent years, obviously it became harder and harder, at least it was for me, to keep up with all those things going on. And meanwhile, people were moving over to their mobile devices for staying in touch and communicating. Prices started to come down. It was more accessible, yada, yada. All these things happened. And what I think is interesting is that Evan Biz, this is my, sort of mental model for how this all worked, kind of took the model of blogging and they chopped off the body and just took the subject of the post and allowed you to turn what was previously a private communication channel, namely SMS, into a public communication channel.
Yeah.
And they did that right at the right moment. They resisted change for a long time. And that simple creation of a new communication channel that was extremely limited and restrictive actually defined a new medium that was so much more accessible to so many more people, because as it turns out, it seems, most people can string together at least 100 characters and form some sense of a thought. Whereas stringing together 100 sentences is not something that all of us can have the ability to do, as I'm demonstrating right now.
So you're giving them a lot of credit for having understood that they were up to something.
Whether they understood it or not, I think they knew well enough that, you know, these communication mediums take a long time to evolve and to emerge. I mean, you know, I mentioned Nate Ritter not because it's like, oh, look, he was the first person to do this, but because there's a role and several roles that end up being really important in the evolution of social media. And so if the software, the technology that you introduce or create is monolithic and doesn't allow for there to be observers and curators and creators and subscribers and favoriters and whatever the different sort of mechanisms are that people use to engage, then your medium is very likely to fail or to take an extremely long time to actually take off. And so, you know, you mentioned television and you mentioned, well, I guess sort of radio fits into that. These are very like one-way sort of broadcast mediums. They're very cheap to sort of like produce once the infrastructure is there, but it's very hard to replicate that infrastructure. So on the flip side, blogging is very cheap to reproduce. It's very cheap for lots of people to actually participate in, whether from a readership perspective or from a publishing perspective. And then there are the people, you know, which we've seen through Wikipedia, that show up and just want to sort of improve things. They may not want to sort of be creating their own content or writing their own stuff, but they'll notice every typo that you make or, you know.
But we need them
things
too.
Like that.
Yeah, we need them too.
That's my point. So I think what Twitter did was they created these different roles almost accidentally. Again, like back with Nate Ritter, there was no retweet back then.
Right.
All of us that retweeted would type RT, the username, and then the original post. It was all manual. And eventually Twitter was like, okay, that's interesting, but it kind of like, you know, screws up your feed when everyone's writing the same content because they're retweeting somebody's witticism or something like that. And so they adopted that and they said, you know what, this is a behavior that seems like it could be useful and valuable. And so we're going to create a new role, which is the retweeter. And there you go.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, I think one of the keys here, this is true of all entrepreneurship, is when you build something and don't know what it is, and you are able to hear well enough when your public tells you what it is, right? And that was true of both, for Ev Williams, it was true of both Blogger and Twitter, where, you know, he knew there was something there, and Lord knows Ev, you know, kept Blogger alive by the dint of his determination. But it took a while before you knew, oh man, this really is something.
Well, and I mean, it's true for hashtags too. When, you know, when I put those out there in the beginning, you know, I was mostly like ridiculed. People thought they were kind of stupid and like so nerdy that you know, of
no
course
one would
Messina
ever
be
use
doing something
those.
like that.
Only Chris Messina would ever want hashtags.
And I kind of believed that, and I was like, that seems probably true. But I'm going to do it anyways because.
So you were
I'm
the
like
first
that.
person to do that?
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Chris.
Oh, well, Chris, I want to ask you.
By the way,
advice
we thank you for the dick bar as well, because without hashtags.
No. You know, so if I were getting paid by Twitter for all the hashtags that they're getting sponsored, then you could thank me for the dick bar. But since I'm not, I can't take credit for that.
Wow. But that's interesting because I've heard
Twitter
of
client
Go ahead, Gina.
I'm sorry. What was the first Twitter client to make a hashtag search a clickable, searchable thing? Do you know?
Actually, I'm pretty sure it was Tweety.
Which is now the official Twitter client. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when I first saw that, because, you know, again, like the both the success and the use and the proliferation of hashtags themselves, first of all, were never guaranteed. Secondly, it seemed completely crazy and outlandish that anybody would really ever support them, even though like I hope that people would understand that until Twitter supported groups in some capacity, we needed some other way to, you know, bring ourselves together. And once Tweety supported them, I started to see other clients do it too. And in fact, actually, you know what? Maybe I'm a little mistaken. So I think that was the first client, but one of the first apps that actually supported hashtags was the search engine that they acquired.
Surmise, right?
Surmise, exactly.
Yeah.
So Surmise saw the value in that because they're like, oh, you search for the hashtag and now you can click it and that'll actually execute a new search. So that, you know, and going all the way back, Twitter used to have a feature when you could tweet via chat called Track. And, you know, Steve Gilmore loves the Track. But
I
idea
love
was
the
that
track. I missed the track.
Right? So it was like push notification based on
Yeah,
things
it was awesome.
you want to subscribe to.
Yeah.
So when you did hashtags, it was a way of sort of saying, hey, I'm interested in this thing.
Yeah,
so all
follow
my
that
friends who are at
tag.
South by Southwest, let me track that content. Then, of course, they decommissioned track and replaced it with trending topics. And then it became very clear that hashtags would be the way to sort of game that system. And so it became the way that people actually form these ad hoc disposable groups.
Right.
And especially when you're in mobile, especially when you're in SMS, you need something that doesn't require any overhead and is extremely, fast and cheap and dirty.
Chris, can I ask your advice on something? I mentioned this on the show, where the problem with a big news event like the ones Andy covers is the hashtag quickly becomes fairly useless in finding original material.
Yeah.
And it becomes discussion. And then it becomes so gigantic you can't even follow it. And I suggested, made a suggestion that Leo brilliantly amended to include another character, let's say an exclamation point at the end of a hashtag to say, I'm actually a witness. And yes, it'll get gamed, it'll be perfect, but it's another signal. Now, the first question is, does that make any damn sense? But the second question is, if it does, how does one start to get people to use it? How did the hashtag spread?
Yeah, so... and I followed up on your blog post. I left a comment sort of describing some of the other proposals that people have had around similar things. I think number one of the reasons why the hashtag took off is because it was solving, or at the time, it solved the problem, at least for me, which was to provide additional context for what I was talking about. So if I was at a conference and I said, oh my God, that speaker was amazing, my followers would be like, what the hell are you talking about? And then I'd go back and forth and have to explain it. If instead I was able to say, hash Web2OCon or something like that, now you have context for at least knowing sort of where I am, what my context is. So that was sort of the generation of that idea. As well, it allows people to sort of find each other in sort of a serendipitous way. So whether it's through searching or seeing other people using the same hashtag, you can kind of express your affinity for that idea just by using the hashtag in line. In terms of introducing new formats or new techniques, I think it's absolutely a challenge, but of course it's totally possible. But I think that the thing that I've discovered and that I posted on your blog post is that people will engage in activities during emergency scenarios that make sense to their survival. And they're not thinking about the journalist, they're not thinking about the newspaper, they're not thinking about these other things when they're running around trying to find their family. So whatever it is that you want to have as a behavior that gets adopted or widespread, either one needs to be practiced all the time, duck and cover, call 911, all those things that need to be sort of grilled into the population because they're things that you do in such a seldom time frame that you never know that you're going to need them, let alone should you be paying attention to them. On the other hand, if they're activities that you engage in your day-to-day life and they just become part of, this is what I do. Whenever I tweet, I throw on a hashtag, or whenever I tweet, I throw on a witness tag, or however you want it to be, that could be a way of starting to help spread that information. But it's got to start with a couple people demonstrating that behavior, getting some benefit from it, and then allowing other people to emulate that in their own context or circumstances.
Yeah,
or else
and I appreciated that advice. I think it's important. I think you're right. I think the main advantage is not getting to journalists. If I were in Japan with all this, I'd want to know other people who are here so I can ask them, is there any gas station open? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I think, I really support like the goals and the ambitions of what you're describing. It just seems like it's a really hard thing to get people to sort of get in the mindset of doing.
Maybe impossible. Yeah, I agree.
Another thing has changed since you added hashtags, which was, at that time the universe was small, and a lot of people, probably a large percentage of all tweeters, followed you. So you had a lot. I mean, now I think it'd have to be the company that would introduce anything at this point. There's just too many. The universe is too big now.
Well, I think that's true, but I think at the same time, if you started off in these small like pools, right? I mean, this is kind of where lolcats came from, and all sorts of internet memes. I mean, like Charlie Sheen. It didn't have 2 million or however many millions of followers he had, before 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And so it is possible. Obviously, if you have your own notoriety, you've been in many, films with people, then you can sort of promote these things. But I do think that internet culture has a way of self-propagating if there is a message or if there's a meme or if there is something that resonates. So, so I guess that's the piece.
It's still
of it.
Possible.
It's entirely possible if you hit the right vein.
Yeah. if people know how to do that, please contact us because
That's right.
there's a lot of money to be
You've got a
made.
book to sell.
Well, if you don't, it's great. It's so great having you on, Chris, and I appreciate it. And a great conversation. If you don't mind, we can take a look at some of the hot news stories that are bubbling up. There's quite a bit of news, actually. I almost don't know where to begin. Perhaps we should start. It's not exactly our beat, but I think it's an important story with AT&T buying T-Mobile. I'll tell you where it is our beat.
It is our beat, you bet.
Because there's no Nexus S or Google Nexus One without T-Mobile. I don't know what they're going to do now. And it gives, as the single GSM carrier in the U.S., it gives AT&T extraordinarily clout.
This is true. Unfortunately, I probably can't say too much about that. I actually don't do a lot of work on Android. Not to mention the carrier stuff is extremely interesting, I suppose.
Don't go there. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit complicated.
Yeah, no, I do think that, one of the things that I thought was really interesting also that's in the news is actually how all the Sprint numbers now are enabled as Google Voice numbers. So I didn't have anything to do with that, but I think it's a pretty awesome feature.
So is Sprint going to use Google Voice as its voicemail system? Is that the idea?
You'd have to read into the details specifically, but the idea, as far as I understand it, is that if you are a Sprint customer, you now get all the great benefits and features of Google Voice.
Interesting.
Which is really, it is pretty interesting. They announced that with the Nexus, the 4G Nexus S, right? That Google Voice came built in.
The next Nexus.
And that, I mean, it really isn't an advantage to the carrier at all, right? Because it gives you number portability. You can switch. And you can switch phones.
But it's all the extras, right? It's all the different features that Sprint doesn't have to build.
Right.
You get visual voicemail for free, basically.
Right.
Well, Sprint's trying to position themselves. Their whole ad campaign is that they're the only ones who mean unlimited. And at some point, if they're the smallest carrier by far, which they'll be, do they become the carrier of choice for geeks who understand this world? They're not there now, but these kind of steps give them a credibility that they didn't have before that could be important for folks like us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of great stuff happening in the mobile space right now, and I'm constantly trying to stay abreast of everything that's going on. This latest thing I think is just very, very interesting to watch and sort of to imagine what it means when your phone and the services that it's tied to provide you with all sorts of great experiences.
That's always the first thing I do with an Android phone is I turn on Google Voice and use that as the messaging system. I like doing it better with a pure phone. I'm glad to see that the first 4G Nexus will be the Nexus S on Sprint. I'm not as excited about it as a CDMA phone because it means it's not going to be a world phone. But at least we're going to get 4G, and at least somebody's going to still make and sell a pure Android phone. So I'm happy about that. Any other thoughts, Jeff, about the AT&T acquisition? $39 billion. Might take as long as a year to close. Of course, it's got to get regulatory approval. So they could.
Well, it goes back to the Schminternet discussion, which, by the way, is not a joke on
Schmidt. Eric Schmidt.
No, the Internet Schminternet. I think that especially with the FCC's proposed rules on net neutrality, it becomes all the more troubling because it's an oligopoly. And less competition means more control there, and same old boat, same leak.
What about those who say, including Malik, who was, I agree with you, very unhappy about this, that it is at least is an opportunity for the FCC to strong-arm some concessions on net neutrality out of AT&T?
Let's hope they have the burritos to do so.
That's exactly right, yeah, because we haven't seen much evidence of that.
I think Kevin Purdy said my favorite thing, which was he's a T-Mobile customer as I am, and he said, "This is too bad. I've been enjoying connectivity through obscurity for so long."
Connectivity through obscurity, baby. Tethering free, unlimited bandwidth free, very affordable plans. All of that's gone. Although it is an opportunity, and I'm interested to see Sprint immediately jump into the fray. It's an opportunity for Sprint as now the small guy left, and Verizon's already said we're not going to buy Sprint. To say, well, okay, we'll take the mantle from T-Mobile as, the alternative carrier.
Well, how do we, is there internet triumphalist, Twitter revolution guy that I am, shouldn't we T-Mobile customers, and I am one too with my beloved thing,
Samsung Galaxy S,
organize and scream and start Facebook groups to say, these are the things we demand of you, AT&T.
Yeah.
Well, let's take the bull by the horn.
I agree. Right to the FCC. This thing's going to take a year to close. Right now to the FCC, say, you better make sure that AT&T gives you some concessions here. And, I kind of like that world where you've got Verizon and Google saying, no net neutrality on wireless. If there's an alternative, this could be a big win for AT&T to say, well, we'll protect your net neutrality. This is a big opportunity. And AT&T is not insensate to the regulatory issues. The press release, already started spinning, whoa, this is good for rural customers. 45 million more people get 4G. Notice, by the way, they didn't mention phone coverage at all. I can't remember. I think it was Joshua or Neil I. Patel on TWiT this week said, that press release didn't say anything about phones. It was all about 4G data. Nobody cares about the phone anymore. There was an article in the New York Times says that in 4 years, text messages will exceed phone calls as the way people use to communicate with one another. It's all about the data, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else? Android App Store on Amazon.
Kind of disappointing.
Not very many apps, 3,600 apps. Did you want more?
A crazy roundabout process to install it, which is the thing that I really was wondering. How are you going to install it?
Yeah,
right?
it's not
going to come through the Android market, right?
Right.
So you have to enter your phone number or your email address, and then you get a link that you click on your phone, and then you have to uncheck install. Don't install apps from unknown sources. I mean, it's quite a thing to get it installed, and there was the promise of free Angry Birds, right? Like that's why you did it. Which I got it too, but it doesn't work if you uninstall the App Store, which is interesting. And also,
Angry Birds won't work if I uninstall the Amazon App Store.
Right. If you got the Angry Birds Rio from the Amazon App Store, then you uninstall the App Store app. And apparently, I haven't tried it, but apparently, if you try to play, it'll say, "Hey, it looks like the App Store is uninstalled. Please reinstall to play." So
that's I guess all the free apps then, because they say they're going to do a free app every day as the incentive.
And my app, I had submitted it, it got it approved, and I've since updated it. So then last week I submitted my latest version, but they never approved it. So they're selling
an old version
4 versions ago of my app, which was so frustrating.
Well, and what happens? So I paid for it on the marketplace. Do they have a mechanism for somehow carrying your existing customers over, or would I have to pay for it again?
I think you'd have to pay for it again through Amazon. I mean, you wouldn't, Amazon, right? Because you already have it. But yeah,
let me see, because I have it on here. You can see todo.txt, which I love. I use religiously. Let's go to the Amazon App Store. The other thing is it's not very pretty. I mean, it looks like Amazon.
Yeah. And honestly, you don't want to buy it because it's the wrong version.
Yeah, right. And is it going to overwrite my old version?
Right. Will it overwrite the old one? It's a good question. It was the same APK, or the same,
So let's see what's free. Although I guess I got to check every day to see what's free today. World Series of Poker, Texas Holdem. Well, I'm going to get that. Of course, my problem is I have a Nexus 1 which has literally not literally, but almost no room for apps.
I'm running up against
I keep deleting apps because there's no room in here.
Yeah, me too.
But I love this phone. I'm not knocking it, but I'll probably get one of them Sprint phones. So you're on here. Huh?
Oh, Leo, you're going to get every phone alive.
I know. It's just me. It's just me. By the way, Gina, just so you know,
Amazon's going to launch a device, right, running Android with the market. This seems pretty obvious.
Yeah, but Apple says, "Hey, we own App Store."
Right.
They're suing now. We were talking about this on Security Now earlier, and it's fascinating. As Steve Gibson was talking to his patent and trademark attorney, who said this is a great story because Apple was turned down initially for the trademark App Store because it was descriptive. It wasn't a specific trademark. Apple reapplied saying, well, it's descriptive. It's become a trademark now because of us. It describes the Apple App Store. So in use, it has become a trademark, and they were given the trademark. So they do have a trademark they're defending for the word App Store. But I think Amazon's attorneys probably said, this might be a little bit of a shaky. Apple is actually risking losing this here. Interesting. Speaking of lawsuits, Microsoft suing Barnes & Noble over Android in the Nook. Is this the beginning of a Microsoft campaign against Android? And Microsoft asserts that Android violates its patents. Maybe they go after Barnes & Noble first, slowly build up some law, come marching after Google.
Android infringes on Microsoft's patents, so Microsoft suing Barnes & Noble for the Nook?
Yes. Do you follow that?
And that makes sense because...
You following me here?
Okay.
That's just how it works. In fact, it's not unusual to see that where you would go after a licensee first. I don't know. Sometimes it's to build up a war chest. I don't think Microsoft needs a war chest. But the other reason you might do it is to kind of test the waters here and see what the courts say.
Right. Ugh.
What are your friends? I know, Chris, when we have a Google employee on, Chris Messina works for Google. He does not speak for Google. I'll give you that disclaimer. And you don't work in the Android division. But do you have an opinion on this Microsoft suit?
Given where I'm sitting right now, no. I don't.
No, I have nothing to
You put him on the
say.
spot.
I will let the attorneys handle it. I know. I just had to ask.
I will say something entirely different, though, about something sort of related, which is about the launch of Firefox 4.
Now, we should say Chris was an early evangelist for Firefox.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's how I got my start in open source, actually.
Yeah.
And it is actually somewhat related, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what Mozilla and Firefox are able to do with their web app store. They've talked a lot about it. They, I guess, have some designs and prototypes in mind. I'm very curious to see what their user experience will be, since that seems to be something that they're going to need to up the ante in the next 5 or 6 releases that they're doing this year.
Well, of course, Chrome already has its own web store. Oops, that's not a picture of it, but that would have been had I pushed the right button. Chrome already has its own web store, but they don't call it an app store. It's just a web store.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So avoiding that.
Well, it's a sort of different model. I mean, it's similar. A lot of the Chrome apps are all HTML5 apps, which I think is great. I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop with a lot of Apple's apps. That may not happen now since they've got such great native support. But, I sort of wrote about this a long time ago, saying that Steve Jobs hates the App Store because,
I remember
the
that.
iPhone,
Yeah.
right? The iPhone. So when the iPhone first came out, and I've only heard sort of speculation about this after the fact, but when it first came out, of course, there were no apps. You couldn't install apps. It was like locked down. And the best that you could do that was close to an app was you could install a bookmark on your home screen.
Web apps. And Steve
web
put a
apps.
hard sell on for web apps.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. Right. And so for me, this was like, as an open web advocate, I'm like, yes, this is amazing. This is great. Right. Like finally, we're going to get a web platform that can compete with native apps. It can be portable. You can, access these apps in your browser, yada, yada.
Non-proprietary.
That's right. As long as you got a browser, you're in the game. And a lot of Mac developers didn't like that story so much. They had their tools. They knew how to build stuff. And eventually, they came out with, what turned into, iOS with the ability to build apps, native apps, and the whole App Store thing to sort of provide them. And that had never been done before, really, in software. The fact that there is now, the Mac desktop app store is also this sort of strange fluke in history. And it's going to be very interesting to see if it's possible for others to sort of deal with that. So it looks like I'm actually getting kicked out of this room, so I'm going to have to say farewell.
Well, thank you, Chris.
You didn't sign up for this conference room.
No, let me tell you, real estate is actually at a premium here.
All right. Well, Chris, it's been great having you on. Chris is Open Web Advocate for Google, and you can find him on the web. He's got one of them .me pages now. It's Chris Messina. Who are you using for this? Is it you or?
No, actually, it's Verb, VIRB.com.
Okay.
Love those guys, and they've got this great little web app builder behind the scenes. So
Verb.
that's where it's at.
I'll have to try them because I got all the other .me's. I might as well get a Verb.
Thank you, Chris. Next time, game us and put things on the whiteboard that we'll think are great secrets we've seen. All right.
Yeah, a blank whiteboard.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what are they planning? They covered up the whiteboard.
All right, guys, I'm getting kicked
Thanks,
out.
Chris.
Got to see you.
See you
Thanks,
later,
Chris.
Messina. It's great. Always great to talk to Chris. He's one of the.
They didn't just kick out you; they kicked out the whole audience of Twig.
Little do they know, there's 50,000 people in this conference room. Oh, too late. It's probably Chris DeBona did it. Said I was supposed to be on this show. Chris was supposed to be on this show. He gracefully stepped aside for Chris Messina. Chris DeBona will be on next week. No?
Oh, cool.
Well, he couldn't get a conference room either. I'm sorry. 2 weeks from now. Next week. Oh, next week another Googler, Dan Russell, will be joining us. What does Dan do for Google? He's like a search guy, right? Yeah. It's cool.
Fabulous.
Google search guru. Let's take a break since we've lost our panel. Half the panel's gone.
Was it something I said?
It's your fault, Jeff. Let's take a break and regroup. What do you say? Think up, think up, think up. Okay, now there was a little subliminal ad, but I'll do a real ad right now for FreshBooks. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, FreshBooks.com. FreshBooks is a great way if you're in a business for yourself, and I know a lot of you are because it's the middle of the day and you're not working. So you must be a... Right? That's who watches this show. Yeah, you're a consultant. You're billing by the hour, and instead you're watching This Week in Google. No.
PJs in your home office.
Life is good, isn't it? But there's one little thing in your life that sucks. I know what it is because for years I was in the same boat. It's printing up those invoices, going up, firing up Open Office or Microsoft Word and doing an invoice. Nothing worse. In fact, it's so bad that I would never send invoices. I'd get around to it 9 months later, and that does not endear you to clients. Let me tell you, there's a better way. I found it in 2004 thanks to Amber MacArthur, and I encourage you to try it. You can actually love invoicing with FreshBooks.com. It's easy online invoicing. Once you upload your logo, you can quickly create an invoice. It does all the math for you. If you do bill by hour, there's an iPhone app and there's a web app that'll actually, let you record your time and then automatically just import it right into the invoice. It couldn't be easier. The invoices are sent by email. Now, there's a reason why you might want to do that, but just to reassure you, for a very affordable fee, you can also have FreshBooks print and stamp and mail your invoices so you don't have to touch it. No more licking of envelopes. Now, the reason I liked the email invoice, besides the fact that it really looked good, is there's a button on it that says pay this invoice. And I love that because you can automatically charge your client's credit card, set up auto billing. They can pay it from a credit card or 11 other electronic payment services, including PayPal. They don't have to print a check. They don't even have to think about it. And according to FreshBooks' own customer survey, FreshBooks users get paid on an average of 2 weeks faster because of this.
This may save my marriage, Leo.
Do you do invoicing?
Ugh.
It's horrible.
I'm not supporting my wife. It's awful. I hate it.
Horrible. Anybody does it. Microsoft Excel or, that's crazy. I guess you could use Google Docs. But no, this is, first of all, it's free for the first 3 clients. For a lot of us, including myself, that's all I ever needed. But if you need more, it's still very affordable. Do sign up for 3 clients and see how it works. If they ask you, say you heard it on This Week in Google, that's all I would ask, so we get a little credit for it. And by the way, every day this month, they're having a drawing among their new customers for a birthday cake. So even if it's not your birthday, you could get a cake on FreshBooks. FreshBooks.com. Try it for free right now. I think you're going to like it. And you can even give yourself a secure login page with your own name. I just loved this. I was so happy. FreshBooks, in fact, I want to go back to it. Now I pay people to do this. That was easy. I'll do my own invoicing, Lisa. It's okay. No, never again. FreshBooks.com. All right, we have regrouped Gina and Jeff. Gina Trapani from smarterware.org. Jeff Jarvis from buzzmachine.com, and the author of What Would Google Do? I wish Chris were still here because it turns out the young people want to work at the Google. A survey by Universum, a consulting firm that helps companies improve their attractiveness to protect prospective employees. Apparently, that's a business. We'll make you more attractive to the kids. Say that 25% of their survey respondents said Google is the place they wanted to work. More than half the next company down, which was Apple, then Walt Disney, then the U.S. Department of State. Huh?
That was interesting and heartening.
Yeah, I guess
they want to take over the world one way or another.
Government service.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The FBI's on there right after Amazon. Microsoft, CIA, NASA, and Teach for America. So actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the top 10 are government jobs. That's really
it's really great. I love the Idealist and Teach for America. And they said that the top write-in candidate, because they were given a list of companies, the top write-in candidate was Facebook. Which isn't surprising, right? You want to work at the places that make the things that you love, and young people love the Facebook, right? So and the Google.
It's a little weird that they weren't given the Facebook. I mean,
yeah, that Facebook didn't appear.
Whoops, left that one out by accident. I'm sure that was an oversight. What makes Google so desirable to young people? Is it the free food, the segues in every lobby?
It's probably all the press about how great it is to work there. Yeah,
I think you're right.
I mean, right?
I think you're exactly right.
The culture.
That's all Colleen ever wanted to do. She even told me when I hired her.
I know, it's so great.
I'm not going to stay here.
Dead set on that.
Yeah, she said, I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to get a job. As soon as I get a job with Google, it's sayonara, Leo.
Well, kids, you don't want to work at a big company. Work at a small company. Start something new. You don't want to get sucked into the big corporate machine. Make a name for yourself at a small place.
Although,
that's my advice.
Did you see that who was it said that Larry Page said that he wants to make it more like it was in the early days of Google? I presume that means more entrepreneurial. They've always tried to do that. I think.
Has any big company really succeeded? Like Microsoft splits the company right into little separate campuses, kind of create that startup feel. But I wonder how much you can get that genuine startup feeling at a big company. I don't know.
When we were there,
I think that's why Facebook still Zuckerberg brags about how small the teams are that build things. Is that reason? I think in part. He's trying, trying to keep it down in size.
Oh, I know what that was. That was Stephen Levy's. That was an excerpt from his new book about Google.
Ah.
That was in Wired magazine. I presume. I mean, he's got a new book about Google.
Yeah, it's coming out. I just got the galley, so I'm eager to read it.
Steven's been working on Stevie, my buddy Stevie. He's been working on that for a long time.
My homeboy.
Yeah, my homeboy. I love.
Yeah, hasn't he been embedded in headquarters for like 5 years?
Yeah.
He what else came out of? There was some very interesting stuff in there.
That's in the current issue of Wired with Lemur on the cover. Yeah.
Yep. And I didn't put it in the rundown. I should have. I apologize. Interesting story. Let's see here. More news. We got the Georgia Tech story. Georgia, is this your number? I don't want to give your number away.
No, I don't have a number.
Good. Well, here's the number. I won't mention the story, and you now have a number.
I got to read the story then. Joking, just joking.
We're giving you an update on the Google Books deal. Remember we talked about that a lot last year.
Yeah, Siva, right?
Siva Vajanathan was a regular. His book is out.
Knowledge.
Speaking of Google Books, his book's out too.
Googleization of everything.
Jeff, you've got some competition out there now.
I know.
So we said this is going to go back to court, and it's a battle that's going to go on. Well, it's back from court. The judge has now, according to the New York Times, rejected Google's deal to digitize books. Tuesday, a federal judge yesterday rejected that $125 million settlement that Google had proposed, and the publishers had accepted. They were going to create a foundation and put a pool of money in it and give it a chance for rights holders to get some money out of it. And now that means, I guess, Google Books is back in limbo.
But the judge did it without prejudice. So what he's basically saying is improve on this in ways that I don't fully know and come back. So, I think it's a process. It's negotiation.
I guess he's not far wrong. He says this deal would, and a lot of people did criticize this deal, would give Google a, quote, de facto monopoly, end quote, and the right to profit from books without permission of the copyright owners. A lot of people said, $125 million, come on. That's not enough. And the judge did say that a universal library would be a great benefit to mankind. That's the argument on the other side. But he wants a better. He said, you're right. I think that's what he's saying. He wants a more fair agreement. But after all, didn't the publishers and authors agree?
Well, that's where Siva can do a far better job. Not entirely. I mean, when he wants an opt-in versus opt-out, I think that's part of the issue here, is that you were presumed to be in the deal, and who's to speak for every author.
Right.
So, no, I mean, all the authors didn't agree. Some, Siva, I'm sure, wouldn't.
Right.
Though it doesn't really matter because it's really more about the orphaned authors, which we talked about last year.
Right. That's what the pool of money, I guess, was to benefit.
I mean, in the meantime, by the way, the book business is changing yet more. You've had the Borders bankruptcy, and now you have HarperCollins, my former publisher, trying to restrict reuse of an electronic book in libraries, which I think is pretty important.
Yeah, they want a limited number of lending?
Yes.
Lends? Come on.
Loans.
Come on. It's a digital copy. It's not even a print copy. And nobody's ever done that with print, right? Said, you can only lend that book out 12 times and you got to buy another one? That's crazy talk.
Exactly. Gutenberg's Bible's been around for 500 years now.
No, I'm sorry. You can't borrow that.
Right.
Too many times it's been out.
Yep.
Crazy. So I have hopes that this might not be dead. The judge seemed to, as you say, leave the door open. Google said they were clearly disappointed by the result. I didn't know this, though. They've scanned already 15 million books. 20% of copyrighted titles have been licensed from publishers. And so those 20% are actually there in full. The rest
Are just snippets.
are snippets. The orphan works are snippets, and they wanted to put the rest of those orphan works. That's the real problem, because those orphan works in most cases are orphan because nobody wants or cares about it.
Right. It's so frustrating, though, to think that they have that data and could show it to you, but they're just showing snippets because of this kind of legal battle. You know, it really would be a benefit.
How valuable. And the people who are fighting this aren't really publishers and authors. Like we said, they made the agreement. It's Microsoft and other companies who say, well, no, we want this. We want a business. It's not people who are looking out for the author's interests, I don't think.
Right. It's Microsoft and Amazon saying that they don't want Google to have control over this and making money from this information.
How dare Google do this?
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. I watched a great movie, came out a couple of years ago, was Oscar nominated, called The Last Station, about Leo Tolstoy's last year. And one of the things, his wife was so pissed off at him because Leo Tolstoy wanted to sign over the rights to all of his books to the Russian people and not charge royalties. And his wife said, "What? No, you can't do that." He did do it. He snuck around and did it right before he died. She had a fit, at least according to the movie. And then anyway, the court reversed it and gave it gave the family back the rights. So this battle has been going on for 150 years. Sadly, while War and Peace is in the public domain now, there are no books in the public domain for the last 65, 70 years now. How you like the new Chrome icon, Gina? Pretty, huh?
I don't like it.
I don't like it
I'm the only
either.
one who doesn't like it.
No, I hate it.
I hate it. Right? It looks like it just got run over by a truck and kind of flattened. Like, you know those penny machines where you like put the penny in and just like smushes it. Like, that's kind of what it feels like.
They flattened it.
I don't get it. I mean, I understand the rationale. I like the other one.
The other one looked like a game. It looked like something, you've been thinking you bang.
That's the problem. It looked like a Simon. That might be the problem.
Right, which I liked a lot.
A fresh take on an icon, says Google. Quote, a simpler icon embodies the Chrome spirit to make the web quicker, lighter, and easier for all.
Is that your designer voice, Leo?
Yes.
It's just an icon.
I want pink everywhere. That is not homophobic. That's just designer talk. I'm a straight designer that lisps.
Don't worry. I would check you if it was homophobic.
I just don't understand. I mean, but obviously this is a designer who said, oh, no, 3D's out. Flat is in. Yeah,
apparently flat is in. It's okay.
I don't think you're alone, Gina. I don't think anybody likes this. Wait a minute. Okay. Wait a minute. Somebody in our chat room, C. Lindhartson, says, I kind of like it a bit.
I kind of like it a bit.
I don't know why you change an icon. But
and why you make a big deal of it, too.
And why you publicize. Well, because, you know what? They know it would be a big deal. If they, by the way, here's a picture.
Here we are doing it, too.
Thanks to TechCrunch. Here's a picture of a Simon. It does look like that's exactly what it looks like.
Yep.
Maybe Mattel said, It is a little. I think it's maybe a little bit old school to have like Chrome, like 3D, and have highlight, specular highlights and stuff like that.
Oh, now you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, Leo. Now you're coming over.
It's so 2008.
I feel like the new one is just like it's the Photoshop layer that's missing like the other 10.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
like,
the top
where's the rest
layer.
of it? Yeah. Like,
Chrome 11 is adding. Now we just got Chrome 10, but already they're working on Chrome 11. I think this is interesting. This will be the first Chrome you can talk to. It will have.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Speech. Have you tried it?
I have tried it. So I'm running. You have to download the beta. So I'm running the beta, which I didn't realize was running the beta. I had subscribed to the beta channel a while ago and got 11. But if you click on there's a link. It's that HTML5 Rocks slideshow.
Yeah.
There's a speech to text page. So if you click on that page, you tap on a button, which is the microphone. It looks just like Android, and you talk into your browser, which is what I was doing earlier. And even though I felt silly, I was pretty impressed. It does a pretty nice job, and it's all HTML5, no Flash,
Yay.
no craziness.
Wow.
Do they have it yet on the Google page on the search?
No, I don't believe they do.
That's what
I don't believe
want.
they do.
You want the search box to be it, right?
Google.
Yeah, right. It should be.
The browser itself should do it.
Tell me what I'm doing next, Google. then the Google would talk to you.
It would be cool if the Google search box, detected whether or not you had Chrome 11. But yeah, it's pretty neat.
For that
I like
matter,
it more than I thought.
the address bar.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I tell you, with Android, one of the things
to TWiT.
Right. I love on Android, you just press and hold that search button and you say exactly that, twit.tv, and it goes right there.
For working homers, this is great. No one in an office is actually going to talk to their computer unless they've already got the headset on.
Right.
Although,
Can you imagine the cacophony in an open office? Everybody's shouting at their computer. No, I said alt.porn. Not alt.corn. Did I say that out loud? Firefox 4 is out, and so is IE9. So the browser wars are back, baby. Chrome 10 came out a little ways ago. Firefox 4, 4.7. Actually, I should go to the latest because that's. Let me see. That was the first day, 4.7 million, while IE9 only had 2.35 million. Let me see. Where do I find? Let me see if I can find the Firefox current.
It's glow.mozilla.org.
Oh, thank you.
GLOW.
Go to glow.mozilla. Isn't it easier just to type it? Really, seriously, isn't it?
Yeah.
Glow. No, not go. Glow to 10.4 million, and look at that. That's cool.
Pretty cool.
I like this page. What does this even do? What does that do? What does this do? Its lights are going on when people are downloading. Ooh, and then there's a little, what is this at the bottom? I don't understand. Help me. Am I doing something wrong? Click.
I guess these are downloads kind of going by. Is this a live? It must be a live visualization.
And then there's a graph. It's a bunch of visualization. I don't understand. Wow, that's cool though. Even though I have no idea what it is. And then there's a Facebook button. I can Facebook this. I like Mozilla Firefox.
And a Twitter party.
Twitter party? They're having a party?
Apparently.
Whoa. On Twitter?
The hashtag is FX4.
So you have to bring your own hors d'oeuvres?
Yes.
Well, that's no fun. Be part of Team Firefox. They've been very good at this. I should have asked Chris Messina about this because I think he invented this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Tweet about Firefox 4 with the hashtag #FX4, and your avatar will join. Oh, I get it. These are people's avatars. Got it. Oh, golly. You could be part of a giant Firefox avatar. Wow.
Neat.
That is kind of neat.
Good for them.
They're good at viral marketing, yeah.
So who uses Firefox still here?
No, nobody. Nobody.
Have you guys downloaded 4? Have you tried it out? It's pretty nice. I mean, it's much faster.
Yeah. That's what they're saying.
Which is really what they had to do, right?
Right. Well, it was getting so bogged down by all the extensions. So I have a feeling it's faster because none of the extensions work.
None of the extensions are up to date yet.
It's amazing how fast it is.
I know. I've got to update my extensions. Oh, to-do list.
Happy 5th birthday for Twitter, and they have a little video. I should find this video to celebrate. It's their 5th birthday. Oh, by the way, meanwhile, the New York Times is asking Twitter to help it block paywall violators.
Yeah.
How do you think that paywall's going so far? Have they started?
Well, it's only in Canada. It hasn't started. It starts on 28th.
That's the opposite of the real world.
Yeah.
It started in Canada.
Why are we mean to Canadians first?
No, I mean everybody. Let's just get that out of front. Okay, here's the Twitter celebration. It's a Twitter party. 5 years old, and they made a video, and they put it on YouTube.
I use Twitter to learn about it and share what people
Richard
are doing
Branson.
to make the world a better place.
Entrepreneur.
I'm interested in everything related to space,
an astronaut.
but also scuba diving, piloting aircraft, anything electronics, and photography.
We're interested in music,
Vida Bohem.
news, and funny people.
I'd look for paint thinner if I were them.
The best way of finding out what my guests are up
Here's
to before they
Morgan,
come on my show
CNN
is to
host.
follow them on Twitter. This is exactly what I do.
I follow Green Day on Twitter
Oh,
because
Serena.
I always like to keep up with what they're doing. They're my favorite band.
I want to stay up to date on fashion news, so I follow
RZ Rachel Zoe. I don't know.
Women's Wear Daily.
Fashion
I like to follow my
stylist.
homegirl,
Snoop
Martha
Dogg.
Stewart. Because Martha Stewart, she keeps it scudded and butted. baked and flaked, and she loved to wake and bake with the good Snoop Dogg.
All right, that's a
It's always
win.
good for us to know what people want, and I use
Julian Peretta?
use Twitter as that, as a way of learning what I should do, what fans want, because they're the best critics.
I can talk to the fans. They can talk back to me.
Nice.
Fights they want to see. Things I'm doing wrong.
Ultimate
how
fighting,
stupid I
baby.
am, whatever the
Dana.
deal might be.
Love Dana.
Are you a fan of UFC?
I am.
Twitter.
Wow, Gina.
Tabs with
I know.
never would have known. Conservation via the zoos and aquariums.
Really? I wouldn't think UFC.
Full of surprises, RJ.
Yeah. So this is pretty good. This is well done. Back to the astronaut.
What's
I'm
the
bored.
Venn diagram, pardon me, of Glee and Ultimate Fighting?
Yeah. Do you watch one right after the other?
We've had this conversation. Glee and Ultimate Fighter gay. That's the two.
Ultimate UFC?
Oh, really?
Wait a minute.
Yeah, a little bit,
Oh, wow.
No, I like UFC. I
You've
I don't
rocked
know.
my
It's
world,
a-
Gina. I had no idea. I've watched UFC. My son likes UFC. Wait till I tell him it's gay. He's going to really enjoy it.
Oh, I'm gonna get email about this. I've already gotten email about this. I'm gonna get more about it today. I can tell.
No, but this is the beauty of this. This is the beauty of this. It's just another thing. It's like somebody has 5 fingers. It's just another thing.
Exactly.
It's not.
Exactly.
It no longer means it's just a thing.
Right.
New York Times paywall limit to extend beyond Google to all major search engines. Now, this is different from what I thought. So let's talk about the New York Times paywall. They are going now with the Wall Street Journal. A Google link on Google News was to the full article, which I always thought was a great loophole.
Right.
They're not going to do that?
They're going to allow in social links, and you can go to the fronts of all the sections, and so you can go through RSS and such. But when you hit 20 stories, 20 things a month, it's going to put up
a month.
A month.
A month. Okay.
That's considered a frequent user, which I think is a rather sad commentary on the newspaper business.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's less than an article a day. That's Monday through Friday. I mean, I read far more than that. I guess we all are more.
Right, so that's a frequent user. And then they're going to say, pay up. And, they're going to the frequent users in the hopes that they keep on saying most people will not hit it. Well, okay, except that means most people are even less engaged with the New York Times. And that's
not good.
Odd. And then when you try to make people more engaged with the New York Times, your reward for that is bing, brick. I think that they might pull it off because they are the New York Times. People care about it. It's the best in the country, yada, yada. Well, Chris started the yada, yada tonight, didn't he? That's
so Seinfeld.
It is. By the way, a friend started somebody I know started a if Seinfeld had Twitter hashtag.
Oh, that's good.
And my contribution was, I just took control of a mile of the information superhighway, said Kramer. If you know that episode.
Yes.
Never mind. Anyway, so
I'm laughing inside.
I know, it doesn't go anywhere. All right. Well, you can't repeat a tweet. The danger to the industry, I think, is that the Cleveland Plain Dealer or the Dayton Daily Disgrace will think, oh, if they can do it, so can we. And they can't.
Right. So the policy of search engines get 5 free clicks a day.
Right.
So for the first 5 articles you get through news.google.com. Oh, wait a minute. No. Not Google. Now it's really confusing. May 28th.
They're taking
March
advantage of. No, you're right about that. They're taking advantage of the Google freebie in stuff, and so that is. You're right. It's set at 5. It's set at 20 a month. Social links usually work, but it's complex. And then you can buy if you buy the paper in print. Then you get all the online stuff for free, but I think not the iPad app. The iPad app is extra. If you buy the Weekender plan, you get online for free. If you buy online only, you get phone apps and web, but iPad is extra.
Now, incidentally, we talked about this in Security Now. It is about the flimsiest paywall you could imagine. It's some JavaScript code, and if you turn on no script, you go right through it.
Right. And so there have already been scripts that actually all it is a little bit of a few divs that put something up on top of the page and disable scrolling. And if you take those divs out, I think there's already an application to do that. You know, part of this is if you want to go to this much trouble, you like the Times that much, the moral argument is then pay for it. That's the deal now. It's the price. The other argument is that if you go to this much trouble, they're still getting page views and they're getting advertising revenue, and that's fine. They're just trying to find a new revenue stream. You know,
which I admire. I mean, I love the New York Times. I want to support them.
I agree with that. One of the great things in the story is there's some woman in Canada who tried to send them checks all the time saying, I should pay for this, and they had to send it back. The question really is the Carvin, who is the former digital design director, who's a really talented guy at the Times. He was down at South by Southwest. He wrote a very good post talking about this as an opportunity cost. And the Times spent a year and a half.
Right.
And
in other words,
$3 million.
missed revenue.
Well, not just that, $30 million in terms of missed opportunities to innovate and do new things, do different things. How could you have invested that money in other things? The Times started out of their lab, news.me, which is now being run by Bitly and BetaWorks. And that's the kind of thing that might, you know, be better for them. Similarly, Murdoch spent $30 million starting the Daily, which was just a copy of the old model. So that's somewhat disturbing. Coy said it was part of the reason he left the Times is because he's an innovator, and they were concentrating all this time on just the paywall. Yeah. I'm rooting for the Times to succeed. We need the Times. I like the Times. I love the Times. I read the Times. I just don't know if this was the best way to go.
They say they rolled it out in Canada first. It's coming to the rest of the world in 5 days, but they rolled it out to Canada first to get rid of the bugs, and that's good because a Canadian hacker immediately created a bookmarklet that you could just drag to your toolbar that just turns it off.
Yeah,
goes right through it. So that's probably the easiest way. Just drag this to your toolbar and you'll get the New York Times without that silly.
I think pay for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just pay for it. Just pay for it. The Times is worth it.
As opposed to the Daily.
Right.
Yeah. I know a lot of people who are saying, you know, what it's forcing me to do, though, is kind of audit my Times expense. And you know, my wife has said this, and somebody, a news executive I was just with today earlier, said, you know, do I really want to pay all this for the print? And I really never really look at the print, so maybe it's time to cancel the print and go online only. And that hurts the Times more because the print reader is still more valuable thanks to stupid advertisers.
The Times has also asked the folks at Twitter to turn off aggregators like Free NY Times, which aggregates New York Times stories, puts the links in, and I presume puts the paywall-free links in. So
that has been updated to not New York Times.
Link.
Is it now not New York Times?
Yeah, yeah.
That's good.
Actually, no. It does appear to be still getting updated. Okay.
Yeah. Paywall. This is why I don't like paywalls. I understand that people want to make money. I certainly support that. We try to make money. You know, it costs money to create content, and New York Times has awesome content and a huge staff and spends a lot of money to create that content, so they deserve to get paid. But it becomes whack-a-mole. As soon as you put up artificial technological restraints, geeks just go, yeah, that's interesting. Let's see how we can get around that. And there's a dozen ways to get around it already. And so what does the New York Times do? They're going to do, I'll tell you the opportunity cost. Now they're going to spend money and time fighting against these workarounds.
And there's an unknown cost to market this and to convince people to do this and to deal with the churn of people who leave. They did a hell of a lot of research. I know a lot of people who got, you know, surveys. Would you be willing to pay this? Would you be willing to pay that? And
they opted for pretty expensive. It's not cheap.
They did. Well, they say that's what the market says they'll pay. Though there is a problem there, as people say, oh, yeah, sure, I'll pay that. And when it comes time to take the money out of their wallet, will they really? Well, they'll find out soon enough.
I think we should pay in Bitcoin.
Yes. What a smooth transition, Leo. That's why you are the pro.
Google, we've talked about Bitcoin on Security Now quite a bit. In fact, there was a whole episode on Bitcoin. The idea is, I'm not completely clear, it's a new form of currency. You earn Bitcoins by solving problems. In other words, dedicating computer cycles to the Bitcoin engine. There is a market in cash for Bitcoin. Yeah, actually, greenbacks, hard American currency. There is some thinking that that's actually just a money laundering effort. I'm not sure exactly how that works. But Google's now announced an open source Bitcoin client. Do you think Google wants to have its own currency? Facebook does.
I'm pretty sure I had a drunken conversation with someone about this at South by Southwest. And and it's all coming back.
It sounds like the kind of thing you'd have in a drunken conversation. It's just the strangest. So actually, it's probably a 20% project, or maybe it's not even official Google. It is in the Google code, Apache 2 license. It's a Java client for Bitcoin. They call it Bitcoin J. It's not an official Google project. It is a 20% project. By the way, Google says they're going to donate 20% time to Japan, which I think is really great. Google engineers in Japan.
That is great.
What does that mean? What does that mean? What are they going to?
They're going to. Google will allow their engineers who are currently doing 20% projects to devote those hours to helping Japan, whether it's volunteer work or.
I see.
So, did you know that?
I wish I don't mean to be a smartass about this. I really mean it. I wish they could put the smarts of Google around finding solutions for the damned reactor.
Yes. Well, maybe that's one of the things they'll do.
Maybe. I mean, stranger things could happen, folks.
Not stranger than this. Lady Gaga and Marissa Meyer.
It's a great video.
I don't. Who is Lady Gaga? Says the Google search. This is pretty good. For those of you listening, we're getting a dancing search query. 1 billion views of Gaga on YouTube. That's actually an old number. I think it's far higher than that.
Oh, it keeps going.
Oh, 8 million followers on Twitter. A lot of kids lip syncing. Do you Google the lyrics to Bad Romance? Is this done by Google?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, this was their kind of intro video to the interview.
So Lady Gaga was at the Googleplex and was interviewed by Marissa Meyer, who is a fashion fan.
Great pairing. What a great pairing.
No kidding. How was the interview? I didn't see it.
I only got to watch the first few minutes. I thought it was really cool that Marissa seemed pretty kind of nervous, but Gaga was very comfortable and seemed to. She mentioned it right away that all of her friends in high school wanted to work at Google, and she sort of acknowledged there were some great minds in the room. And she said she didn't want to work at Google. She wanted to be the person at the top of the search results always, which she obviously has done. She's got it. Yeah. But it's a good interview. I plan to. I'm going to watch it later on, the full thing, the full video. But it was neat to see the two of them on stage.
Wow.
Great reception there.
That's really neat.
Everybody loves Gaga.
Who doesn't love? I confess, I just downloaded. Or what do you do when you call it, when it's RDO? It's not downloading. I added Gaga to my collection.
Nice.
So gay. All right. I'm just joking, of course.
You're allowed, Leo. I absolve you. You are allowed.
I'm just joking.
Being a gay, I can transfer that power onto you. You are allowed.
So, okay, because Baratunde says I can be black now. You say I can be gay. I am so happy.
You're in.
I'm in.
I say you can be old.
No, that's too late. It's already happened. Sad to say. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. I'm going to watch that video. I want to see that video now. That really is very interesting.
She tweeted her favorite moment from it. I forget what it was. But
Marissa did?
Yeah, hold on.
It's obviously something just Marissa just wanted to do, right? It's
my favorite moment of Lady Gaga talk, 35-minute mark. Best piece of advice, if you don't have any shadows, you aren't standing in the light.
Wow. That's heavy.
Heavy.
Let me think about that for...
Yeah, I'm thinking
sorry,
about that.
I brought the show down, didn't I? Sorry about that, Leo. Go to commercial.
You don't have... Wow, you're not staying... Well, how far into the...
35 minutes.
35-minute mark.
Well, okay. You watch. I'll do an ad, and we'll come back. Then we're going to get our tool tip and number of the week. Jeff, you can look, but I left one. I left one for you.
Take this as a gift.
Time to mention our friends at Citrix. I'll give you a number. How much do you think it costs on the average business trip? According to American Express, $1,000. Many of us work with people around the country, around the world. And those traveling expenses, not only expensive, it's time-consuming. It's just nobody wants to do it. That's why I recommend and use GoToMeeting. We got a GoToMeeting coming up right after the show. with one of our suppliers. It's just it's so wonderful to be able to meet with clients and colleagues on the internet. And GoToMeeting makes it so easy. You can try it right now for free for 30 days. Go to gotomeeting.com/twig, GOTO meeting.com/twig. 30 days free. It'll give you an idea of what you can do with it. Now, one of the things I really like about GoToMeeting is that your clients, your colleagues don't have to jump through hoops to have a meeting with you. So you install it on your system. It'll integrate with your email program. You send out an invitation. All of a sudden, they've got the invitation. They know what time. It includes teleconferencing, VoIP or regular phone. They've got a great iPad app, so they can even meet with you on an iPad, which is fantastic. 30 seconds, they'll install the software even if they don't have it already, and then you're ready to meet. I just use it for all the voice conferences because if I want to fire up a screenshot, I can, or they can show me something. Goes both ways. GoToMeeting.com/twig. I've been using it for years. I want you to try it now free for the next 30 days. I think you'll like it. GOTO meeting.com/twig. Gina Trapani, your tip of the week.
Quick tip this week, Google search, getting a little smarter, making educated guesses about what the release date is for movies and video games. So like if you Google Sucker Punch release date, it'll say at the top of the results, best guess for Sucker Punch release date is March 25th, which is later on this week, and it will cite what the sources are. So it seems to only work for movies and video games, but it'd be interesting to see this kind of thing work for things like TV shows and other things as well.
That's really neat. That, again, trying to make you give you the information you're actually looking for.
Right, without making you travel off to another site.
Right.
Yep.
Very clever. Jarvis, your number of the week.
Well, thanks to you, Leo, we can do Georgia Tech gets $1 million to build a benchmark for the open internet to see how open it really is. And all the more interesting since, the Google Verizon deal, does the internet include the wired internet or does it include the mobile internet?
Right.
And what's really net neutral? But I think having a benchmark to decide that is good. The other thing I would like to put in a pitch for is I want to have a definition of high speed for hotel rooms. So we can go hit them over the head with our machines when they do not work. High speed and what definition? I want a benchmark for that.
Well, I have to say we need benchmarks or definitions for a lot of things, including what the hell is 4G?
Yeah.
Yes.
What is broadband? I can think of a lot of things we need definitions for, actually.
I'll give you one more number, too, since in honor of Andy, and thank you for having Andy on.
Yes. He's great, boy.
He's magnificent.
Yeah.
Most tweets he's done in one day. Again, most of it's retweet, but he's done 1,300.
Oh, man.
Whoa.
That is a full-time job.
Wow.
It is.
My tool of the week is a much improved Google Latitude for iOS. They've been updating all the Google tools. I mentioned Google Search last week. I was showing the old version, it turned out, but you get the idea. The new Google Latitude actually has parity with Latitude on Android. And Latitude's just been lagging for a long time. Latitude is Google's check-in service, kind of their version of Foursquare. But it has some interesting features, one of which is automatic login. So I use Foursquare all the time, and one of the problems with Foursquare is that you have to, manually tell it to log in. You can say if you're at a spot that you want to have automatic check-ins, here I am at TWiT, I could say post it publicly, post it with friends, check in here, and then can I also say, I have to accept this, I can also say, from now on, when I get to this place, just check me in automatically, which is kind of interesting. Oh. So they've beefed this up, and I have to wonder if this is the beginning of. See, I'm a regular, by the way, at my place of employment. I have to sign up with my Google account. But this is really interesting. I can see my other Latitude friends. I can see where they are. If I zoom out, I can see where they are all over the world. I liked this so much, and I thought it was so useful. I deleted a lot of people because I was just saying yes to everybody. And so now these are actually people I know. And I get the check-ins, and I get the 3 closest check-ins. This is very much like the Android version, but is now on iOS. Do you think, I wonder, if this is going to become... I, by the way, invited you and Jeff and Gina to be my friends, but you haven't said yes yet. But I just wonder if they're really kind of eyeing what's happening with Foursquare and saying, gosh, we're missing the boat on this. Maybe we should Maybe you should. Now, unlike a lot of the check-in services, this doesn't cross-check you into Foursquare. It's kind of interesting.
I still think Foursquare's success is still small. It's growing, but I think
there is an
still
opportunity here.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I do think so.
They're about to raise another round. I saw somewhere online.
Yeah, they've got 4 million new users last year, so they're growing, and they've certainly changed a lot. I think this is really. And by the way, this integrates right into Places. That's what you're seeing here is the Places entry for TWiT.
The value to Google is more signals, right? I've argued this in the show before that the best signal generator from us that can then target advertising and content is the winner. So how can Google really push us to tell them where we are?
Right.
Well, carrying the phone is the best indication of all.
Turn this on, and I think this is really, really interesting. It's actually quite useful too. And I kind of like the auto login feature, but that's why I eliminated all the people who I didn't know because I didn't want to automatically tell them, where my house is and things like that. Come visit, I'm home.
Right.
Or
come
worse.
by, I'm not home.
Yeah. Come visit, I'm not home is even worse, isn't it? So if you have iOS, I've been using Latitude for a long time, and I've kind of polished it up a little bit because I've got it now on Android and iOS. And I think it's an interesting alternative to, say, Foursquare or GoWalla or one of the other check-in systems. Gina Trapani is a blogger at our wonderful smarterware.org. You must read this site regularly. If you do not, you're missing out. I'm sincere on that. She also has a great app called ThinkUp, used by movie stars and normal people everywhere, and by the White House. So that's pretty good.
That ain't bad.
Thanks, Leo.
All
Great
she
show
needs now
today.
is Lady Gaga to use it.
Oh, that's what I need. Seriously. Leo could hook that up, I'm sure.
I'll work that out.
Yeah, Leo can work that out. Leo's he's my connection.
Me and Gaga, we go way back. Why don't let's get Lady Gaga on here.
Yeah, seriously.
Or Marissa Mayer, one or the other.
Yeah.
Marissa
would be good.
I'd be much more interested in Lady Gaga. I have yet to see Marissa. She's too poised. I've yet to see her slip and say she's not the Eric Schmidt.
Well, you need to watch this interview with Gaga because she was giggly and really, you could tell she was nervous and into it. It's good.
How cute. It's 35 in, huh? What happens?
That's her line. That's what she likes. But maybe
that's the line. That's her favorite kind of line of advice. But even just for the introductions, you can tell she's really excited.
Well, my first question that I wanted to ask was, how are you?
Oh, wait a minute. I don't know. I've got two Gagas going. Oh, my God. It's terrifying.
Viewers never really asked you enough.
Shut up. Where's that coming from?
So I wanted to ask.
There's too much Gaga. All right. I'll find that 35 minutes in. We'll play it maybe next time. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff is at buzzmachine.com, and his book is What Would Google Do? And we will talk to you next week. We do the show live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Eastern.
Highlight of our week.
We'll see you next time on This Week in Google.